Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential, chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast, PEP Talk, as we like to say here. Your host here, Ilan Ferdman, and it's been, I guess, a little bit strange because the last few podcasts, or interview podcasts, I should say, have been around financial freedom and investing and things like that, which is new. So it must be that I'm attracting that into my space, and hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Can surely tell you that I'm learning a lot. I had an absolute blast interviewing today's guest. His name is Todd Tresidder. He calls himself the financial mentor, and he has what he's created as the 7 steps to 7 figures. Now, he was a trader for a long time, owned a hedge fund, realized that he just didn't love that so much anymore and wanted to go out on his own and coach and train people. Put himself out there, and within the first go-around, filled in every one-on-one coaching spot and has not lost any one-on-one coaching clients since. And therefore, there's a huge waiting list, and yet no one can get in there. So it's not likely that you'll be able to get him as a one-on-one coach for you. It is very likely, though, that you'll be able to learn from him, and that's really what we cover here on this interview. What I really enjoy, Todd is, I said this at the end to him, I've read a lot of books on investing. I've spoken to a lot of people who are financially well off. I've had different people try to teach me different things about finances. There's a difference between someone who has learned from textbooks and someone that's learned from experience. And Todd is definitely the latter. I had such a fun time asking him questions. He challenged my beliefs. He challenged certain things that I say, and I think we all say and just take for granted as is. One of the things that this part actually ends with is a conversation of what financial freedom means to you. And rather than go at this with this nebulous idea, he cut right through the BS and really drilled that down. And I think that's his whole methodology, is taking it out of conversation and making it into tactical reality so that you know your numbers, you have your number, you know the exact plan on what it'll take you to get to that number, etc. So we're going to walk you through the generality of the 7 steps at this point, what he covers, and then we're going to go into the certain ones of them a lot deeper. But without taking any more of his thunder, let's just dive right in. This is Todd Tresidder, the financial mentor. Get ready to take a lot of notes. I know I did, and enjoy. Welcome back, everybody. And today's guest is going to be really, really interesting because he's going to merge 2 worlds that I love, money and personal development, in a very, very unique way. So first of all, welcome to the show, Todd Tresidder.
Thanks for having me on the show, Elon.
So before I give people kind of the, red bio, which I'm very anti, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself? And I'm sure it'll be more interesting than me reading a few pieces of notes off a piece of paper.
Yeah, I've probably said enough times it's probably actually pretty similar. But so anyway, the only reason you really want to listen to me, I cut my chops in the hedge fund industry. I was one of the early pioneers in statistical risk management systems in the financial markets. This was before the days that you had MIT PhDs doing this stuff. So I was developing all my own programs and systems, and they worked. I ran a hedge fund for 12 years. And during that time that I ran the portfolio, we had 100% profitable years. And that's through all kinds of crazy, zany market conditions and everything. The 1 year that was not great, I had one system blow up on me. It was entirely my fault. It was a research error. That was enough to take the rest of the year that was pretty mediocre. So it was enough to take the portfolio down to only slightly profitable. So net of expenses, the portfolio was profitable. The investors lost just a little smidge, like a fraction of 1%. That was my worst year ever. So that would be the only reason, and then I went off after I sold the hedge fund. I became quote unquote, here, let's put air quotes up, quote unquote, financially independent. And so, I'm in age 35. This is obviously a long time ago, as you can tell from the gray goatee, if you're watching the video here. I just didn't want it to be the last great thing I did in my life. There's more to a fulfilling life than, and this goes on the personal development side, there's more to fulfilling life than getting rich and, sitting around and reading dime store novels and playing golf, it wasn't what a fulfilling life was to me. And so I started building Financial Mentor. Financial Mentor is my voice into the internet about how the wealth process actually works. I teach advanced retirement planning strategies, advanced investment strategy. So I don't do any of the usual frugality and budgeting and all the other stuff that everybody talks about. I leave that to everybody else. I focus on the next step, the more advanced stuff.
So is there a specific type of person that you work with?
No, it's pretty broad ranging. I'd say the only real commonality is that they've kind of been there, done that with traditional financial advice. They recognize that this game is more than what is commonly taught if you want to succeed with it. And so they're looking for that next step. So that would be the only commonality. I have people that are in their 20s that are just really advanced, really sharp, and they've learned the basics, and they say, wait a minute, there's more to this game than that. I've got people who are in their 60s or 70s who have been beat up, and they're ready for the next step. So, I've got people who are wealthy, people who are just starting to build wealth. The one commonality is they've learned the basics. I'm not here to teach the basics. I build from that. And that's where the wow factor is. If you know really well what's commonly taught, then the stuff I teach has a wow factor because people can see it really is building on the shoulders of it. It is a different twist.
Brilliant. And do you gauge someone's expertise before you start working with them? And if they don't meet that certain level of basic knowledge, you kind of send them somewhere else? How does that work?
Well, okay. So back in the days when I accepted coaching clients, my practice sold out a while ago. I haven't accepted coaching clients for like a year and a half, maybe even 2 years now. I'm not even sure. And I don't have much client turnover. And so I haven't ever reopened to accepting coaching clients. But back when I did coaching clients, I had a whole filtering process to make sure, and there's even a page still up on the site. If you were to try to go through to become a coaching client, you'd find a page up there that goes through, who's the ideal client for coaching. And it goes through and explains, and my whole premise was I only wanted to work with people who got more value than it cost, because one-on-one coaching is very expensive.
Yep.
But there is a client profile where it's a no-brainer decision. And fortunately, I had a large enough following that I could handpick those people where it was a no-brainer thing. I only want to work with people if I can add value.
Sure.
And so that was for the coaching. Now what I'm doing is I'm trying to reach more people with what I teach. I'm trying to get beyond the one-on-one model. And so I'm building out courses right now. It's called 7 Steps to 7 Figures. And so each step is a separate course teaching a specific solution in the wealth building puzzle. And so by definition, people kind of pre-qualify themselves because they're picking the step that is the correct next step for them.
Gotcha.
And, I didn't make this up. This is how it works in practice. And I only developed the 7 steps because I coach people for so long. I've been coaching people since 97, one-on-one on how to build wealth. And so I just found that there was a specific pattern of steps that people progress through.
So can you just name them so people kind of get a gauge of what those are?
Yeah, you want me to just kind of give name and then just a couple bullet points?
Yeah, and then I'm sure we'll delve deeper into them as we go through this.
Sure. So step 1 is traditional financial planning. So everything that goes into traditional financial planning plus more goes into step 1. So that's the starting point. Like I said, that's the basics, right? And my intention is to eventually give that course away for free. It doesn't even exist right now, but I want to just give it away for free, right? So that everybody lands on a solid base. And that becomes the entry point in the process. Step 2 is what I call habitudes of the wealthy. And so habitudes of the wealthy, what I found was that your personal habits and attitudes determine your health, wealth, and happiness. Not a revolutionary thought, but it's probably much deeper and more profound than most people realize. And so it goes through where that came from was I used to take debt coaching clients get out of debt. And I had this kind of really interesting juxtaposition of get out of debt clients next to wealth building clients. And I noticed that they were mirror opposites, not just in their financial picture, but mirror opposites in their behaviors, their attitudes, their values, like how they functioned in the world. And so what I learned is I can reduce that to specific habits and attitudes that can be taught and then implemented step by step through a course format. So that's what step 2 is. So what you'll see is each of the steps are paired. So step 1 and 2 is what I call the foundation, right? So you've got the financial side, which is step 1. That's your financial foundation for wealth building. And then step 2 is the habitudes of the wealthy. That's your personal foundation for wealth building. You got to get those 2 right to set your foundation. So again, you're pairing personal with financial each time, each step of the way. Excuse me. And so step 3 is building your wealth plan. That's the financial part on the next level, right? So that's building a wealth plan. It's not like a financial advisor does. It's very different. It's custom developed to fit your personal needs, your resources, your life situation. It's not just this thing like an investment plan like a broker would give you where you're supposed to just farm a bunch of money to them and suddenly their magical asset allocation formula is going to get you rich. Shovel enough money at them, right? This is all about how you literally integrate your life into a process that results in wealth. And that becomes your personal wealth plan. It's actionable. You live from it. It's a completely different animal. So that's step 3. Step 4 is now you have your wealth plan. You have to get into action. So now we're going to the personal side. So see, step 3 was the financial. Step 4 is the personal paired with it, which is now you have your wealth plan. You have to learn how to take massive action. Because the reality is, if it was just as simple as having a plan or having an investment strategy or something, a lot more people would get rich, and they don't.
Yeah.
Very few people do succeed. And part of that is in how you take massive action. And I've got 3 prongs to that, more than we want to get into. Step 5 is one of the hallmark courses. So step 3 and step 5 are really the hallmark courses. Step 5 is what I call expectancy investing. It builds on the traditional passive index asset allocation model, and it goes the next step beyond. It adds layers of risk management, layers of expectancy. And so it's an active framework. And again, it builds on the traditional passive framework, which is completely valid. It just has a miserable risk reward ratio over the long term. And so it's not an efficient process. And I show how to make that more efficient and get better control over your investing. That's step 5. You want me to keep rolling?
Yeah, absolutely. These are great.
Okay. Step 6, most people will stop at step 5. Most people are done. Okay. But step 6 is once you're financially independent, once you're wealthy, then what happens is your investment strategies change. I call it taking a knee. It came from a client of mine, actually. You know, the football analogy, right? Yeah. If you're way ahead, you know, you're ahead and you got the kickoff and you're down at the 5-yard line when you receive it, you take the knee. You know, you don't try to run it back and risk a fumble and you could lose the game, right? And so it's the same thing once you're wealthy. And so people's investment goals change, their strategies change. And so that's step 6. It's about converting your portfolio to income, about diversifying, about managing risks that most people don't consider, like currency-based risk, et cetera, et cetera. So that's step 6. And then step 7 is the punchline to the whole thing, which is, now that you're rich, so what?
Yeah. I knew that was coming.
Yeah. So now you're financially independent. Who cares? Because the reality is nobody really wants more money. What they want is what they think money will buy them. Yeah. And so it's really going back to the core values that we all have when we pursue this goal, which is freedom, autonomy, fulfillment in life. You know, how do you find these things? How do you live it? And so that's the step I'm actually living right now. I'm in process. Like all the other steps, I've actually walked the talk, done them. I've taught them to multiple clients. They work. Step 7, I'm walking it right now. I'm learning it.
I remember we spoke earlier before we actually did the interview, and we were saying that this is kind of that step where it's ever changing. I don't know that there's some sort of formula. It's just sort of tools and mindsets that you kind of consistently need to develop in order to continue that exploration. I don't think that step ever really stops, right?
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting question. It's never stopped for me. And I don't know if it was a conversation with you or someone else where I got the hit that actually it probably needs to be a membership site, not a course.
Yeah.
Was that with you?
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah. So thank you for that hit. I think that's the way it's going to go. I think it's a process you never outlive.
Yeah.
And because I haven't lived it down yet. I mean, I'm always learning. I'm always growing into it. I haven't gotten there. There's like this mysterious there. I never arrived.
Exactly.
You know?
I still think there's that question, and it popped up in my head of, what do I want to be when I grow up?
Yeah.
I don't know that ever really changes. It's just, you're in a constant process of evolution. I think what's brilliant, and I think this what came up in that conversation about the membership site, is you always want to be surrounded by people who are on that same path as you, maybe a little bit farther, so you're kind of getting different perspectives. And that's where, once you get to this level, we had discussed, it's no longer about money.
No. At
all.
No.
So I want to go back because
here's the funny thing: you don't even have to wait to have the money to go to this level.
That's
the punchline, right? You can go straight to it and not even bother with getting the money.
So you beat me to it. I wanted to actually go back to get there.
I took your punchline, man. I'm sorry.
That was great, though. I was like, okay, we're gonna go to the front, and then we're gonna go back to that punchline. So you say something on your website. I read it, and you achieve personal development via the pursuit of financial independence is the way that you kind of frame it, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is brilliant, because I kind of go about it the other way, which is, I have a knowing that people's wealth, like you said, wealth, health, all that stuff, is based on their mindset. A lot of the times, the technical skills we can teach, etc., but what happens on the inside will really determine what you're able to create. You go about it the other way, which I think is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Can you just say a little bit more about what that perspective or ideology looks like?
Well, it came from my coaching background, right? I'm getting on the phone with a client every week, right? And they want results. They're paying me good money. They want results. And so this was the fastest path to results. The way I like to say it is, financial coaching is really whole life coaching, but what happens is you approach it through the porthole called finance.
Yeah.
And the benefit of that is that gives you direct measurable results and a tangible benefit that justifies the cost. The real benefit is all the personal growth you experience along the way and who you become along the way. And that's the thing that most people don't understand until they go through the process. Because the other thing I throw around a lot is that if you want to get on an amazing path of personal growth, just try to get rich.
Yeah.
Because the very act of implementing the strategies and having to overcome all your personal obstacles and all your limiting beliefs and all these things, and all the things you're going to learn about people and about business and about how the world works, is just, it's amazing. And so it's just an incredible adventure of growth, and you get a tangible benefit. And so what I learned in coaching people was, you start on the finance, you dig right into the meat and potatoes, because that's what they want and that's what they're willing to pay for. And then as soon as you start into action, which is step 4, all of a sudden, bam, they hit the walls. They run into their personal obstacles, and all this stuff comes up, and that's where the personal coaching kicks in. So see, it's this dance, right? You're constantly moving back and forth between the technical issues of having a plan that will work, implementing sound financial principles, following sound business principles, doing all the right stuff, and then coming back to the personal every step of the way, because in the end, it's a personal adventure.
So well said. Did you go through a process? Because you obviously came from a very math-driven, stats background, finance, et cetera, kind of was like numbers. The other side of it, which you're obviously coaching now and you're putting into your programs, is this very almost, I'm going to just call it the spiritual side of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did that piece come about for you?
How do you say? I'm a weirdo. Right? I'm this really weird mix of like very analytical, very engineering mind, and yet I'm really intuitive, and very much into the personal growth and about being on a strong life path. So I'm this really strange mix. Like, I've got these guys I'm building this investment company with, and these guys are hardcore engineers. Like, I've got an engineering mind, but these guys will just analyze everything into the ground and do all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, let's ship it, like get it done. Like, I have this, people say, okay, well, there's analysis paralysis, right? Which is what you get with engineering mindset. And I've never had that. Like, what I do is I just cut straight to whatever the critical factors are, figure them out, focus on them, and go. And so, yes, I've got an engineering mindset to go figure it out, but I've got that other side which brings in that other dimension that we're talking about. And like I said, it's just very unusual. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I mean, like all people that have unusual characteristics, some are good, some aren't,
Yeah.
So
It seems though with money specifically, there's this built up fear that people have. I always tell people as I coach them, they want X result and they want to be this person or have that kind of financial result. And the way I explain to them that journey that you definitely take your students on is, if you were already that person, you would have already had that result. So what we have to work on is you, right? Like if you wanted $1 million and you were set to earn $1 million, you already have the $1 million. So clearly you have to be someone that you're not. When you're working with people, are there 1, 2 things that you've seen are kind of these patterns that most people have that are huge, huge blocks for them to achieving these levels of success within financials?
I can't boil it down to 3. I mean, let me count the ways, right?
Yeah.
But I do want to draw a distinction in your setup to the question, because again, we touched on it, but I really want to hit at it because
please.
My concern with what you threw out, and I'm not disagreeing with you, okay?
You can disagree all you want.
No. I'm not actually disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I learned that it's a dangerous position to take, and the reason for that is it takes away or disempowers people.
Okay, how so?
In other words, if I say, hey, if you're going to be a millionaire, you'd already be a millionaire, right? You got to become the person that becomes that. And so then they're left with this like, well, what do I do? Right? Like they're really stuck, right? Whereas I come at it a totally different way. I come at it and say, let's build your wealth plan. Okay, I don't care who you are. We can build a wealth plan that will get you financially independent in 7 to 15 years. So let's dig in and let's design your wealth plan. We will literally engineer your path to wealth. Okay. And it comes down, it's all math, it's all numbers, it's totally real. And then what the response is when that's done is for the first time in their life, financial independence is real to them. They can see that if they do X, they will get Y. Okay. They can see that this is real. It's numbers, it's engineered, it's tangible. It's based on their skills, their resources, meets them where they are. It makes it accessible. Now, once I've got that plan, now the coaching process begins. And now all the things you said become true through the taking action on that wealth plan. Do you see the distinction?
Absolutely.
So it's something tangible they can dig into. We design a wealth plan. It's real, right? That's the step 3 course. And they can do that in a month. And then they've got it. And now the journey begins, that adventure begins. And as you take action on it, you tangibly become that person because you have to overcome those obstacles. That's that path of growth. And that's seeing where I come with it. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. Where I come with all that is that's the adventure. That's what makes this all worth living. That's the adventure of life. That's your process, right? So that's like the beautiful part of it. And it's hard work, and I'm not claiming it's easy, and I'm not claiming, you get setbacks, it all works, but at least it's real and you can access it. It's like people aren't left with, well, how do I adopt the beingness of a millionaire?
Yeah.
Like I've seen a lot of people say that, and you can't just step into it. I've never been able to figure out how to just step somebody into the beingness of a millionaire, but I do absolutely know how to set up a plan that'll get them there. And then through acting on it, they become that person.
Do they, in the acting of it? So for example, you need to invest X amount of dollars in some sort of venture. And you said that you're one of these guys who are like, all right, come on, let's go. Where other people have analysis paralysis, which I've always, to me, just seems some sort of fear-based conversation about what will happen, how will it turn out, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously when people are going through this plan, they're going to be confronted with, like you said, their limiting beliefs, their fears around money, all that stuff. Are you using this as a vehicle to pull all that stuff up, and then when it happens, you're just kind of walking them through that?
I haven't actually found that creating the plan brings that up.
Interesting.
Yeah, creating the plan doesn't do that because it's, you're engineering, it's an intellectual process. You're not actually taking action. You're just designing a plan.
Okay.
And so it typically doesn't bring up those fears. What brings up the fears is taking action on it. And that's that next step I was talking about, which is step 4. That's where we go into limiting beliefs and overcoming them, creating your environment so they literally pull you towards the goal, creating supportive environments. There's all kinds of steps in there, accountability systems, et cetera, et cetera.
So it's when you tell them, okay, I need you this month to do X, Y, and Z, and then they come back and say, well, I still haven't done it. That's your red flag to basically say, okay, well, why didn't you do that? Because we discussed that, right?
Yeah, it's even prettier than that because, see, I don't have to call them out. They're calling themselves out. They know, right? Because they know what the next step is. It's right in their plan. And if they're not implementing, they know they're coming up against stuff, and it's the perfect setup for coaching. See, I don't have to be the bad guy. People are their own worst critics, right? I don't have to be hard on anybody. That's it. That's what I call, that's accountability coaching. It's an old style coaching. I bring accountability in, but the accountability is built into the structure of the process. They know where they're going. They know what their next action steps are. And if they're not implementing, then you have to come back and you have to say, well, you had the 24 hours in a day. What was more important? Something else came up in front. So what did you do? And then it comes into some real good coaching around prioritization. What are really your values? Do you really want this? Because notice how soft it is. Like, there's no right, wrong. Do you really want it or don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay if you don't. I'm not attached. It's your plan. It's your life, right? If you want it, cool. I'll support you in getting it. If you don't, then cool. Let's design another plan that more accurately represents what you're willing to do. Because here's the reality, Elon. You're going to pay a price no matter which path you take.
Yeah.
See, the thing about getting wealthy, building wealth, achieving financial freedom is it doesn't take any more effort than not doing it. It just requires being more strategic and intelligent about how you expend your effort. You're still going to live this life either way. The question is, what does it result in?
I love that. So do you find that most people that work with you brought up a really good point, that they already kind of have to be in the conversation of, I want to build something. I want to build a net worth. I want to build whatever. I don't want to say the word legacy, but I want to do something that my kids can benefit from, et cetera, versus people who are just like, I'm going to make enough money and do what I got to do. It already is a different kind of conversation, right?
Oh, yeah. It's self-selecting. That's the beauty of content marketing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, nobody ends up in the funnel unless they've self-selected into it. And so by definition, if they're paying for a course on how to design a wealth plan, they're paying for a course on habitudes of the wealthy, they're paying for a course on expectancy investing, they've read the sales letter before they parted with the money. They know what it's about. They self-selected saying, this is my next step. This is something I want to learn. This is something I'm committed to enough to pay the money and do the course.
Brilliant.
So that's what I love about content marketing, the way the internet's structured is I'm not running around pitching people.
Exactly.
I'm going out teaching this stuff, and people come in and they find it and they go, oh, wow, this is cool. Okay, I want to learn more from this guy.
Exactly. Now, what do you find are is there a pattern in people's goals, like what they're actually trying to achieve in working with you or going through these courses?
Well, no, it's nearly always, the pattern is financial freedom, right?
But that could be a million different things to a million different people.
No, it's not actually. There's actually a real definition of it. A lot of people throw around different definitions, and that's part of the problem. That's one of the reasons they don't achieve it. So a lot of people have what I call the millionaire myth, where they think, oh, if I just made $1 million, I could, stick it to the man and go on and travel forever, right? Or they have or maybe some guys think it's 10 million, I had one client came to me with 30 million. He didn't think he had enough.
Yeah.
So for everybody, when you do an asset-based goal, you can get confused. Financial freedom is very clear. It's when your passive income exceeds your expenses. And it's not a nebulous number. It's not a fake number. This is a real thing, because what happens is when that occurs in your life changes. And your priorities change, because up until the point that you achieve financial freedom, you're willing to sacrifice time for money. Okay, That's what you see most people doing, is they're sacrificing time for money. They're trading time for money, whether it's a job, hourly pay, salary, doesn't matter. You're willing to do certain things to get more money. When you don't have to have more money, what happens is time becomes relatively more valuable. Time is truly your only scarce resource.
Sure.
Right. We all have a limited amount of time, whereas money, you can go into abundance principles, most resources, abundance principles. Time, that one's scarce. There's no making more of it. And so As you achieve financial freedom, time increases in its relative value and money decreases in its relative value, and you will find all kinds of changes inside of you as a result. So it's a real thing. You can't change it. It's real when it hits. When you make that point, certain changes occur in your life, and so it must be defined correctly.
I love that. I mean, I've heard that definition before. I just think that the people that I speak to who are looking to maybe start a new business or build a business, their definition, the way that they see financial freedom is, like you said, I will get to spend more time with my kids. I will get to stick to the man. I will get to fire my boss. I will get to do all these things. And that's not really what we're talking about here.
Well, I mean, you get to do all those things, right?
But that's not the
definition of financial freedom. What you're talking about is what the underlying motivation is to achieve it, which is every bit as important, right? The why. Right? The why of doing financial freedom, whether it's you truly hate your job and you're stuck, you don't want to miss out on raising your children anymore. There's a lot of different reasons that people have for achieving financial freedom. So you do have to find your why, but in terms of defining what it is, it's pretty black and white.
Pretty spectacular human being, pretty spectacular mastery of the financial mindset, what it takes. And I think he just cuts through the BS. And that's what I really, really enjoyed in the conversation with him. In part 2, which you should definitely come back and check out, we actually talk about some of the rebuttals that I think many people have about starting to financial plan. I know for myself, a lot of the time, the conversation holding me back has been, well, when I make X amount of money, then it'll make sense to do this, or you have to have a certain amount to start doing it, all of this kind of nonsense. And Todd really works in a completely different way and lives a very interesting lifestyle, which we'll also talk about. So definitely come back and check out part 2 of the interview with Todd. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you have an amazing day, and we'll talk real soon.
Did you run through doors till you hit the floor? Did you read my eyes and my aching thoughts? Did you walk through walls